Okay, we're talking again with Fritz Arrowsmith, who with his wife Marjorie in 1948, 60 years ago, bought his first small town newspaper, the Solon Economist. Mr. Arrowsmith today is going to tell us about the kinds of equipment that they had. We're so used to being able to sit down to a computer and a word processor, but he's going to explain a little bit about what it was like to print a newspaper or print anything back in 1948 up until the 60s. Mr. Arrowsmith?
Okay, well, it's very, very different from today's equipment. It started out with I suppose you would start out with a linotype, which is invented by a German named Mergenthaler. And
when was the linotype invented?
And that I can't tell you. I know it was a long time ago, in the 1800s probably.
Okay, that's close enough. Yeah.
Still in 1948, there were still one or two papers in the state of Iowa that were entirely hand-set. By a hand-set, that means each little letter was a separate piece of type, and you had to put it in what we call a stick, and make a line and justify it. And you probably could maybe do, I hate to say it, probably maybe a quarter of a column page of the paper in an hour.
Wow.
And the linotype.
Had you ever worked for a place that did that?
Well, not entirely. We had, the first place I started working, they had a linotype, but the only thing they could set was what we call straight matter, which is what you read in the paper. Advertisements and anything larger type was hand set.
But those early newspapers that we see in museums, those were, every letter was hand set, you're saying?
Yeah, the very early ones.
Wow. Were
all hand set. But
so what kind of machines did you use at The Economist?
We had a linotype, in which a linotype, in comparison to a computer, a linotype, to get a linotype, a line of type, you had a keyboard, like a typewriter keyboard, except that there were probably over 90 letters. Lowercase letters and the capital letters were separate, and the numbers. So, and you could only set one size of type at a time. You couldn't make it larger or smaller. It had to be that size. In order to get that, very complicated. I don't know if I can tell you or not. Very complicated because you hit a key on the keyboard, and a little, what we call a matrix, which had a letter engraved in it, would fall into place. And you set a line, and then that had to be transferred over and put down into a vise, which then pumped hot lead into it. And then the keys or letters were lifted back up and distributed in their special slots. So a good linotype operator could set maybe 2 columns of a newspaper in an hour.
You said hot lead. Did you ever get burned?
Oh, yes. You could get burned very easily. But I never got burned very badly, but you could get burned very easily. We had what they call, you could get what they call back squirts or squirts, where the line wasn't tight enough or something, and the machine would squirt lead into it anyway, and it'd come out in front. But most linotypes were made so that if the lines weren't justified, they wouldn't put metal into them.
Okay.
Then from there, you went to forms, metal forms, which were, did what you call makeup. Which I did a lot of it, as I told you, in the World Herald. But you put the stories in place where you wanted them by handful of type, or line by line, or however you had to do it. But you made the page up in metal, and then from there, it went to the engravers, not the engravers, but the stereotypers. And and they made a paper matrix, put it in a press and pushed down, made like an engraving of the page and paper. And then hot lead was put in a machine, and the lead was squirted into it and made to a lead plate. However, in a weekly newspaper, you just put it in the forms and put it directly on the press. And the presses were, now we make a copy of a paper. It's probably, I don't know what size they are, but they're small, probably the size of a page. But to make a copy of a page on ours, on the press, but usually, in our case at least, we had a 4-page press. You put 4 of those pages, whatever page size you wanted, on the press. And you fed individual sheets of paper into that press, and it rolled over and printed. Inked, they had rollers that inked the forms, and then the paper went through and printed onto the paper. That was done individually. I don't never timed, I suppose, maybe 400 or 500 sheets in an hour.
Wow. And how many pages was your newspaper?
Oh, the Soul and Economist was usually, I can't remember exactly, but probably anywhere from 4 to 8 pages.
And how many papers did you put out each week about?
Well, and Soul it was about 700 or 800.
So given what
about the population of the town.
Everybody got one.
But, well, the paper sold for $2 a year.
Wow.
And a lot of people took the paper, but of course there was one paper for family, so the paper was circulated around the county.
So, but given what you just told us about how long it takes just even to do the mechanical part of it, we can begin to understand why you say that both of you spent 15 to 16 hours a day working to get this paper out.
Yes, very much, very easily. Most weekly newspapers had 1 or 2 employees. We didn't have any. We had one time we had a girl working for us. We called her Flossie. She did everything but run the linotype. She was afraid.
She was afraid?
She was afraid of the linotype, so she never could learn to run it.
I can understand why. Well, listen, Mr. Arrowsmith, we're going to stop right now, but we'll be looking forward to hearing some more from you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Very much, yeah.